Welcome viewers to Bodhi Unified Flow. Here we simplify complexity and amplify performance. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's masterclass. We're going to be focusing on a real cornerstone of the Last Planner System, or LPS, measuring schedule reliability through a metric known as Percent Plan Complete, or PPC for short. Now, if you've ever found yourself wondering how to transition your construction projects from, well, unpredictable chaos into a state of reliable, steady flow, you are in the exact right place. This explainer is going to give you the precise tools to measure, understand, and ultimately master your project's workflow. So here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll start with Section 1, defining PPC, then we'll move into Section 2, calculating PPC. After that is Section 3, tracking non-completion, and we'll wrap it all up with Section 4, advanced performance analysis. By the time we wrap up, our learning objectives are going to be crystal clear. We're going to make sure you fully understand the underlying mechanics of PPC and learn the exact calculation. But more importantly, you'll learn how to identify reasons for non-completion, what we often call RNCs, and how to apply continuous improvement loops to really elevate your site productivity. You're going to leave here with highly practical, actionable tools that bridge that gap between high-level master schedules and your actual daily field execution. All right, let's get into Section 1, defining PPC. Okay, let's dive into this. Percent Plan Complete, or PPC, is the absolute standard metric for exercising control and measuring efficiency at the crew level within the Last Planner system. Essentially, it's a measure of workflow reliability. How do we get it? Well, you calculate it by looking at a specific plan period, usually 1 or 2 weeks, and dividing the number of near-term assignments your team actually completed by the total number of assignments that were made. It tells you in black and white exactly how reliable your weekly work plan actually is. It totally removes the guesswork and replaces it with cold, hard facts. I want to highlight this really specific quote from the research literature. A high PPC reflects a well-planned production process with high workflow reliability between production units. Now, this is such a powerful statement. Why? Because a high PPC proves that your production system is successfully shielding downstream units from workflow variation. Think about it like a giant relay race. When one crew finishes exactly what they promised, the next crew can just grab the baton without breaking stride. It creates this seamless baton pass in the relay race of construction, keeping the entire project moving at an optimal pace. Moving right along to Section 2, calculating PPC. The core formula here is beautifully simple. You just take the number of tasks actually completed, according to the plan, you divide that by the number of tasks assigned for that week, and then multiply by 100 to get your percentage. And honestly, what is truly fantastic about this metric is that it requires absolutely no additional monitoring of resource consumption. You don't need complex, expensive time-tracking software for this. You just need to know what was planned versus what was actually done. It's a really lightweight tool, but it delivers absolutely heavyweight insights. But here is the golden rule, and we've got to be absolutely clear about this. A task must be 100% complete to count. In lean construction, almost done is simply not done. Seriously, if a crew finishes 99% of a wall, but they leave without sweeping up, moving their materials, and officially handing it off exactly as outlined in the plan, well, that task is a 0 for PPC purposes. We only measure total completion, because only fully completed work releases work to the next crew. Anything less just causes cascading delays downstream, and we definitely want to avoid that. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Let's walk through a simple, practical example of a foreman's weekly work plan just to ground the math. Imagine 4 activities were assigned to a crew for the week. By Friday afternoon, 3 of those activities are marked 100% complete, but 1 activity is incomplete. Maybe it's only, say, 80% done. The calculation is just 3 divided by 4, which equals 75%. So your PPC for that crew, for that week, is 75%. It's simple, it's objective, and it's incredibly revealing. Next up is Section 3, tracking non-completion. So a PPC of less than 100% basically reflects a failure in the production planning process. But pairing that failure with RNC, reasons for non-conformance or non-completion, turns that failure into a really powerful diagnostic tool. RNCs are the documented causes explaining exactly why the planned work failed to meet the weekly schedule. A low PPC score isn't a punishment. It's literally a goldmine of data. The goal here isn't to assign blame to the foreman, not at all. The goal is to understand the systemic failures so we can fix them. The research outlines several common real-world RNCs that disrupt a foreman's flow on site.
For instance, prerequisite work might be incomplete. Maybe the system incorrectly said a previous task was done. Or it's a planning failure, where simply way too much work was planned for the crew's capacity. Then there are shared resource failures. Imagine you have a steel erection crew ready to go, fully prepped, but the shared tower crane is suddenly tied up for 4 hours unloading HVAC units because of some last-minute priority change from the general contractor. I mean, that's a shared resource failure that directly kills a crew's workflow. Often it could even be design or vendor errors discovered right as the work was supposed to start. These are the everyday realities we must rigorously document.
Once we log these reasons, we enter a continuous improvement loop. Step 1 is identifying the RNC at the end of the week. Step 2 is analyzing that data to determine the root cause. And this is where you might ask the 5 whys to dig deeper than surface-level excuses. Step 3 is implementing a targeted remedy to prevent that specific issue from recurring in subsequent work. Here's a pro tip from the literature. Look at your logs and target the reasons with the highest number of occurrences first. Just fix the most prevalent problems and watch your workflow reliability completely skyrocket.
Finally, Section 4, Advanced Performance Analysis. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, when looking at historical data, it's fascinating to note that PPC values are highly variable. They usually hover somewhere between 30 and 70% on traditional projects without lean implementation. Breaking that 70% barrier is incredibly difficult. To achieve 70% and above consistently, the team typically has to move beyond basic tracking and implement additional lean construction tools like first-run studies to really iron out those deep-seated production inefficiencies.
So if 70% is good, 100% must be absolutely flawless, right? Well, let me ask you this provocative question. Is a repeated 100% PPC score always a perfect outcome? Just take a second to think about that. You might actually be surprised by the nuance here.
Actually, a repeated 100% score is sometimes a massive red flag. It could reflect surplus capacity, meaning you have too many workers just standing around for the amount of work available. It could indicate that ambitions are set way too low at the planning stage and the team is undercommitting or sandbagging the weekly plan. Foremen might pad their schedules to make sure they hit perfect scores, but playing it that safe is an unfavorable behavior that slows down the whole project. Furthermore, the level of detail heavily impacts the score. If a foreman bundles a massive amount of work into just one activity to make it easier to track, they're artificially masking the true variability of the workflow. An advanced facilitator must always be on the lookout for these psychological traps. Okay, let's summarize the absolutely crucial takeaways from today's explainer. We have successfully achieved our learning objectives. You now know that PPC is the ultimate measure of workflow reliability. You know it strictly requires 100% task completion to count. You understand that a lower PPC isn't just a bad grade, it's a trigger to pair with RNCs for continuous root cause improvement. And finally, you know that managing PPC demands balanced ambition from the whole team to prevent undercommitting.
Here are the foundational references and research papers cited throughout this masterclass. I highly encourage you to seek out the work of Ballard, Howell, and the others listed here if you want to deepen your understanding of lean production control. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you leave this session inspired to apply these unified flow principles and elevate the reliability of your very next project. Until next time, think about this. What is one workflow variation you can shield your team from tomorrow? Keep building better.